One of the problems that we're going to face when we get to using the quadratic equation is we're going to end up with expressions that look like this: the square root of negative 100. If you were to type something like that in your calculator is going to give you a dirty look and say error or fail or domain error. There's going to be something wrong, and your calculator will not be able to do that for you for the vast majority of your calculators. Now what we can do though is we can say, hey, I see that negative, I know that that's the problem. I can rewrite this as I times the square root of 100. You say, I, where'd that come from? Well, what we're doing here is we're really saying this is the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 100. If I break out that negative to multiply it to square root of negative 1 times the square root of 100, the square root of negative 1 is not a real thing. There is no answer for that. So what we do is we make up a term called I, and we use it as kind of a placeholder, something we can keep there and say, I know this part isn't real, but later something might happen that might make it real. So we're just going to leave it as an I out front. And then we can keep doing the problem. So square root of 100, well, that's 10. So I can say 10i, and we usually write the number first. So I guess I have this backwards in this first step here, but 10i would be the answer to this problem. And if we look at a problem like square root of 18, that one's not going to come out quite as cleanly. So I know it's going to be the square root of positive 18 times I, but the square root of positive 18, there's a few different ways to approach this. For our purposes, I'm going to suggest you just use your calculator right now, unless you know of how to break down roots. But I would suggest you just use your calculator and get a decimal approximation and say something like 4.24i. Later on in this class, we'll learn how to break that down into a nice clean way, but for now, 4.24i would be an acceptable way to write that answer. Last thing to take a look at is whenever you have I squared. If you have the square root of negative 1 and you square it, the square and the square root are going to cancel out, leaving you with negative 1. So just be aware when you get to that problem that that's what's going to happen whenever you square an I, and that's how it can become real again.